All right, guys, let me leave a video message here. I know there's been lots of discussion and debate about free agency here at mm, All Pro, and I understand both sides and respect both sides of the arguments. I just like to give you a little bit of history here about how this has gone down in different leagues and how we compare here. And while I just came back to All Pro here last season, I left for a couple of years. I was here originally from the very get-go when the league first launched, and All Pro, if you guys remember, was originally a sister league of Legacy NFL, which was my league, and the rules were copied and pasted identical from Legacy NFL, brought over here to All Pro, and this league was started. And so there's a history here and experience, and in Legacy we went through a lot of these same arguments and frustrations over the years. And as a commissioner there, I had to try and settle it in some capacity. Now, some GMs hate change. They say, hey, these are the rules. It's all fair. We all got to play by the same rules. And absolutely, that's true. And that's always got to be respected. But then there's other GMs that look at free agency. Wait a minute, there's something off here. Because these leagues and the way we do free agency is always ripe for collusion. It just is. And I've seen it in other leagues where certain teams in free agency will collude against, say, a division foe or a conference foe and create a blockade of sorts so that a team that is, I don't know, I guess very strong, is powerful, is pushed out of the way in free agency so that team doesn't get any better. And of course, you say, well, that's all, fair in love and war, and this is true because these are the rules. At the same time, it becomes a system of again manipulation. That's part of the problem, and there's a frustration there with GMs that simply want to play the game and partake of it, but the imperfection of the system that we have allows for certain abuses. Now, that's a collusion issue that's harder to prove. I'm just saying from my experience, I've seen it. Now, I think the general consensus here is the frustration of the sniping, particularly when you have members of a league that are barely raising sort of the higher bid by the most basic minimum standard because it appears that they're not trying to win the player, but simply restart the clock. And as money is tied up 20, 21, 22, 23 hours into the bidding, players are coming off the board. And again, this is part of that collusionary factor that could create a blockade of sorts against GMs that just want to partake in it and try and win a player. Again, we're dealing with an imperfect system. And this is what we realized over at Legacy about 5, 6, 7 years ago. And in many respects, all the other leagues I'm in 5 of these leagues right now, and all of them have adopted a sniping rule as sort of one step in mitigating, sort of these abuses and the frustrations that happen in the midst of free agency. What the sniping rule does is, first of all, it doesn't allow the clock to melt all the way down where players are coming off in that blockade. It doesn't eliminate it completely, don't get me wrong, but it does mitigate it to a certain extent. But what it highlights too is that it allows for a serious bid within the last 4 hours. It allows for people that are serious about winning the player putting the bid in. One of the issues we had in the league years ago was one member of a league decided that he was going to determine what the price value of any free agent was. And he would simply go to the bottom of the page and wait for the last, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes of all the players that were soon to be up. And he would simply say, no, I don't like this guy. And he would bump it up 1/10, 1/10, 1/10. And he would simply start the clock over on 5, 6, 7, 10 players because he deemed it unworthy that these players didn't have a market value based upon what he perceived the market value was. And this was another thing that was frustrating to a lot of people. And the clock would restart, players come off the board because money is tied up in other bids and other players. And by the time you get around to your player being up 22 and 23 hours again, you've had players just come off the board, good players, where resources could have been shifted to other players. And this is one of the really the Achilles heel of the current system that we have. The sniping rule helps mitigate that because you simply can't start the clock over. You have to be a serious bidder. You're going in to bid on the player, not to manipulate the system, but you have to actually go in there to want to win the player. You have to have a certain desire to win the player. That's what the sniping rule did. It was Anthony's rule that he created in over at Destiny NFL. That league's no longer around. That was a great league when Anthony was running it, but he created a great rule over there. The other thing we did, and we adopted this one from what league was it? There was another league back in the day. It was called NFFL. They're gone now. That league is gone now. But what they did was they limited how many players can be bid on at one time. They limited to 15. Over at Legacy NFL, we adopted that change. We did, I believe, 20 players is what we do over there. And that mitigated a lot of the other disasters because what it does is it allows players to stay on board. It allows players to stay on the board. It allows only serious bidders to go in after players that they want rather than simply manipulating the clock, manipulating the system itself to create blockades against division rivals or conference rivals or people that don't like each other or even revenge bidding. It kind of eliminates that. It's not perfect, but it does do it in large part. And so by implementing a sniping rule and then eventually limiting how many free agents can be on the board at one time, it kind of has removed that. We just don't have the kind of frustration we've seen in this league that I've seen here the last couple of days. I just haven't seen it in other leagues that where these rules have been implemented, especially when both the sniping rule and sort of the limited amount of players that can be bid on. Because now people are forced, really, for the most part, to go after players they actually want or desire. And we just don't have these arguments and these frustrations anymore. And so these were two little tweaks that we kind of put in place in these other leagues that I think worked very well. So I just think it's something to consider. I'm good either way, mainly because, I've been doing these leagues now for 13 years, and I've learned not to depend on free agency at all. I hate free agency. In fact, it's funny because somebody in the chat today said how everybody gets animated for free agency. I don't. I partake in it. I partake in every aspect of the game, but I know what free agency is. It's especially in a league like this where that hasn't adopted some rule changes. It's tough and it's brutal and it's frustrating for a lot of people. And I think it takes people that play the game at good heart. I think it actually frustrates them to where the more casual GM has a certain advantage at times. So that's just my take on it, guys. I do believe that there could be some changes here. The system could work, but that's up to the league. It's up to the commissioner. I just like to, keep everybody informed what I've done, what I've experienced. I've done this for a long time. I think, again, just adopting a sniping rule and maybe limiting how many free agents can go up at one time, that can do a lot. And you'll see a lot of these arguments, a lot of these frustrations go away. I'm trying to think of anything else that I can throw in here. No, I'm sure I'll think of it. I'll probably just write it out in the chat room. Okay. So there you go. Just my thoughts. Whatever you guys like, go for it. Talk to you guys later.